Welcome to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast. If someone in your life has BPD, you know how difficult it can be, and you need to learn how to heal from those toxic relationships. And that's where this show comes in. Expert education, expert knowledge, expert insight, and delivered with compassion and empathy. To purchase and book sessions with AJ Mahari, visit ajmahari.ca. This is the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast. And now your host, AJ Mahari.
BPD relationship breakups, trying to survive the BPD relationship breakup. Hey, and what's love got to do with it? Got to do with it? Got to do? What's love got to do with it? Got to? Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because people with BPD untreated or the patterns of an undiagnosed, they don't know what love is. They don't attach to you. They don't trust your love. So what's love got to do with it? Absolutamente nada. Absolutely nothing. Do you believe that? Can you even get on the page of thinking that once in a while? Because it's so painful. People with codependency who've been with somebody with BPD and now you've been ghosted or discarded, might be relationship recycling in limbo right now, etc. It's so painful. And for some people, it just seems to be this, I don't know, Uber challenge. You know, I've got to get him or her back. You can't live with them, but you're not sure how to cope and live without them. And you know what? That's a really stuck place between a rock and a hard place. And it's so painful. And for all the reasons, you know, that I've talked about, people talk about all the time, the no closure, you want them back, you don't know what happened, you're sure you're in love with them, and you're sure they love you. And that's such the essence of an unhealthy bond. As I've said, the BPD relationship breakup to recycle. So BPD relationship breakup, it doesn't end, ends for periods of time, and then it's the BPD relationship recycling pattern. So in essence, it's BPD breakup to recycle. So Hoovers, reverse Hoovers, or maybe you're pretending in the con of the no contact. I said that twice because it's so doubly important that you go no contact, but not as a strategy to get your borderline ex back. I certainly hope not. What is your borderline thinking? Are they thinking about you? Well, basically, no. And why would you be thinking about what your borderline's thinking about? Yeah, stuck in rumination, right? Really painful. Meaning you're not finished by a long shot, or you don't know how to stop. Stop abandoning yourself and stop focusing on them. It's really a super codependent thing to be doing. No blame, no shame there. There is shame in a core wound of codependency, and what is really driving you in ways that you might not be fully conscious of. It could be a lot in your unconscious mind, as well as what you are aware of in your here and now as to why you want the BPD X back. When they ghost and discard and devalue you, are you, like, and if that's happened to you now, like, have you been just ruminating on, like, are they thinking about you? Are they wondering how you're doing? Because you're thinking about them a lot, potentially, if you resonate with this. So you're focused on the borderline and what are they thinking and what's happening for them. And if you know, some people do break up with a person with BPD. And if you did that, then you might be feeling really guilty and unsure and kind of really messed up with that too. It's like, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? How are they doing? Meanwhile, you know, a lot of people don't stop to ask themselves, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? How are you doing? And so many people, after the BPD relationship breakup, think that, you know, the only way to feel good again, the only way to feel better, the only way to stop feeling everything that you're feeling is to get them back. But if and when you get them back, because that's not the hardest thing on earth usually, with a lot of people with BPD, but not all. When you get them back, you're doing the same thing over, and for some people over and over again, but you're expecting different results. That's the definition of, quote, insanity, unquote. I'm not saying you're insane, but when people are following codependent, wounded feelings around, or in general following your feelings, and you don't understand the depth of where that's coming from and where those connections are and how injurious this is to you. And is this going to be like BPD relationship breakup to recycle? No idealization again, no honeymoon phase, faster and faster devaluation to ghosting or discarding again. And the merry-go-round just speeds up and speeds up and speeds up, and you're getting more and more lost. What do you think you're possibly going to gain if you keep recycling with your BPDX after the relationship breakup? I've worked with lots of clients who've been in these places for sure. So many people just aren't really able to concentrate on work. They're not seeing their family or friends. They're not hanging out because people are sometimes 24/7 thinking about that BPDX in between the recycles, or if it's your first ghosting and you don't know if you've been discarded. But what are they thinking you're thinking? As a codependent, you're thinking, what's the BPDX thinking? Well, they're not thinking about you like you're thinking about them. And it's not because they're evolved or they're more emotionally mature than you or anything like that. It's because they have these really formidable defense mechanisms. And often, as soon as you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And when you're their minds, and when you're devalued to ghosting or discard, well, then there's just in their minds and their misperception of so much, all the good that you did, all that you gave, it just disappears into the ether. And they might be, have monkey branch to someone else. They might be with someone else. Or maybe they're not, but are you still wondering if your BPDX is thinking about you right now? They're not. They're not. What happens when they hoover you? Because if you're in that no contact strategy or just confusing place of, I don't know, but I want them back, or I got to talk to them about this, or they need to hear how much they hurt me, or I still have their clothes, I still have this, all of this stuff is part of the BPD patterns of they're gone, but then I want to come back, and some don't, and many do, and what are you going to do for yourself in all this? Because if they come back, when they come back, they're just coming back to take off again. Patterns, unhealed patterns, and you're not going to get the do-over that you're probably sitting there ruminating, thinking about when you're not thinking about it, they're thinking about you. Why would they be thinking about you now when you're in the relationship with them, or if you're in the off right now and when you get back on again, they don't think about you? Do you remember that? Like, I know people have cognitive dissonance and can get really focusing on the positive things and ignoring the really hurtful negative things. But if you think about it for a minute, when were they ever acknowledging how you felt? When were they ever acknowledging your pain? In other words, you're in between cycles, recycling, or you've just experienced a BP relationship breakup and you've been ghosted and discarded, or you're not sure if it's discarded, but ghosted, and you're like really ruminating, super focused in a painful way. All you can do is talk to anybody who listens to you about them, right? Understandable. Talk to your family, talk to your buddies, talk to your friends. And then, what do they say? Oh, get over it. She was like this anyways, and you know that, and we knew that, and they don't understand. So even people that really love and care about you, they get worn out listening to you, right? It doesn't mean you don't deserve to be heard, and I'm out here to work with people that resonate with you, because people sometimes just need me to listen a whole lot before we get into the work, or we get into the work, and then they need to really vent and ask questions and seek some closure and understanding through the process as well. And I never tire of listening to my clients when that's what they need, because it's something that sometimes lots of people in their life, just can't get heard or understood about, and that's not very helpful. So the thing is, are you thinking about what your BPD at the moment X, or on and off again, partner X? You thinking what they're thinking about? They're not thinking about you. You really can find your own closure. I've had a couple cluster B relationships after I healed and recovered, as I was still working through my codependence. And, I was able to get closure from them too. And I didn't break up with a BPD, NPD alcoholic I was with a long time back. And then, I did do some ruminating. And, I experienced a lot of what a lot of people are saying they're experiencing now, right? That I believe you're totally experiencing. But the thing was, I was working on my own closure and the understanding of how did I get there. And when I got there, why did I stay there? And I did, for me, that was about a 1.5 year long relationship, but with a couple of on and offs, she would take off and whatever. Cluster Bs, when they ghost or discard you, they're not thinking about you. And then when you get that Hoover, if you do, because they don't all Hoover, if you get to Hoover, well, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And like I've said in other videos, they'll make it maybe seem like, maybe they do feel a bit bad at a certain point. And they're going to tell you all about that and everything. But really, it's what they now want and need from you again. Because maybe they monkey branched, they went on to somebody else, and that blew up. And they have a habit, a lot of people with BPD, recycling back to the last ex, or depending how many relationships they've had, maybe the second last ex. But the answer to is the person with BPD after ghosting you, or it might be a final discard and you're not sure yet. Are they thinking about you? No. You're thinking about how, if they're thinking about you, and you're focused on it and you're ruminating, which is causing you a lot more pain, and you're losing yourself more and more, and it is setting off your fight, freeze, bond response in the amygdala, in the fear center of the brain, and it's having physiological effects on your body. And maybe you're not sleeping well, maybe you're not eating well. So the BPD relationship breakup, is your borderline ex thinking about you? No, but you're thinking a lot about the borderline ex, and if the borderline ex is thinking about you. And if you wonder how I can say this with such assuredness, and that there's probably very few, if any, exceptions to this with untreated borderlines, is because I would ask you to jot down, do a little journaling, and recall when in the relationship did they really see you? When in the relationship were they really thinking about you? These relationships have no mutuality, no reciprocity. You give, and they take, and no matter what you give, it isn't good enough. And it can't satiate them. And that has nothing to do with you. That has nothing to do with you failing or you not being good enough. Generally speaking, more people with BPD than not are not thinking about you. After the breakup, the ghost, the discard, however the relationship breakup happens, that for many, but not all, will lead to BPD relationship recycling. And that leads to more of the same and more of the same and faster, as I said. So if you're sitting there thinking about if your BPX is thinking about you, they're not. And if they do start thinking about you at some point down the road, or they might not, it's going to be because you hold their object constancy, because they lack object constancy. And they don't transfer that quickly, like the way they can jump into a relationship with someone else. Then that relationship falls apart, and they're coming back to you like, well, you're kind of daddy again, or mommy again. And it's not for any healthy reason to do with love whatsoever, and it has nothing really to do with you. Because don't forget, as I'm always saying, and I think I've explained, and I can always explain more if people need, people with BPD unconsciously are seeking identity through you. But for a lot of people with BPD, put to devaluation and ghosted and or discarded, it might have been something as simple as you took your attention away, focus off of them for a couple of seconds or a minute, and the next, like maybe you just looked over, you're walking down the street with them and you just looked over And maybe, like, if you're a man and with a BPD woman and a woman walked by and you're not really eyeing the woman, but, oh, she's going to think you were, and then she's going to feel abandoned, neglected, see you don't really love her. They're just people who don't have a core sense of self. And the identity disturbance is left in fragmented pieces. It is huge that they don't know who they are. Are they thinking about you? No. And then if they hoover you and you think, well, they're thinking about me now, no, still not so much. It's what they need, and it's what they want. And guess what? So the BPD relationship breakup, to the BPD recycle again, to the breakup, to the recycle, to the breakup, they're not thinking about you. And when maybe you occur to them in a moment, maybe months later, maybe a year later, who knows, some people have been involved in this for a long time, then it's going to be what they need, and they'll come back and tell you what you want to hear. And for many very different reasons, you just believe getting them back is all you need and it'll be fine. And you'll do something different this time and it'll make it work out. Nothing could be further from the truth, because they're just going to keep going through their patterns of unconscious repetition compulsion cycles. And by the way, people with suspected BPD in the patterns of, or diagnosed and untreated, and until exceedingly well treated, to almost the point of recovery and healing, which, yes, is possible for people with BPD if they would just seek and stick with effective treatment and really open to that process. They're just going to be using you in cycles. And you're going to be looking for that, getting them to therapy, explaining BPD to them, having all those conversations that they can't have, won't take responsibility for. You won't get heard, you won't be seen, you weren't heard, and you weren't seen in any other past relationship till the breakup, till the recycle, till the breakup, till the hoover. So if you're still sitting there wondering, after a BPD relationship breakup or in between BPD relationship recycling breakup type situation, kind of situation deals, the borderline isn't thinking about you. And if they do turn back your way, you think it's because they've been thinking about you and really regretting what they did? Not really. And even if they say so, even if they feel that a little bit, nothing will have changed. And none of this has anything to do with love or them being your soulmate. I don't know if people are now conflating with BPD exes that that's your twin flame, or if that's just still reserved for narcissists. I don't know. So after the BPD relationship breakup, while you're ruminating and you're having cognitive dissonance and you have no closure and you're feeling withdrawal, which is your own, like you're not getting your dopamine, you're getting the cortisol stress hormone, and that doesn't feel very good. And that's just a simplistic way of, explaining a bit of that. But so you're feeling that withdrawal, and then you're totally focused on them, and you're still self-abandoning you. And this is how a lot of people with codependency try to cope with these breakups. And some of them happen really suddenly, and you don't know what's going on, and it's like, what? And you're in shock, and it's horrifically painful. But they're not thinking about you because they didn't attach to you, because they don't know how to love, and because they're emotionally still living through a lack of emotional intelligence from arrested emotional development. So they're still really young children inside emotionally. And that's where they end up more often than not, and they relate to you as object other, parent representation, and not knowingly. And you wonder why you're not seen and heard, and why they're not thinking about you, or what they did to you, or going to say sorry, or if they give you a quarter of an apology, non-apology. Why would you want them back after how much they've hurt you? And maybe you've been through many recycling iterations, and you know already how this goes. It's just rinse and repeat, and accrue pain and lose yourself more. Well, they just dance around in their unconscious repetition compulsion cycles of defenses, etc., and trying to satiate something that they don't, all their emotions that they don't know how to cope with. So if you're ruminating, wondering if that person with BPD that just broke up with you, discarded you, devalued you, and ghosted you, or whatever the case, they're not thinking about you, but you're sitting there thinking about them 24/7. What's wrong with that picture? What about you starting to be there for you? And I'm out here to work with you if you resonate with wanting to start being there for you instead of being ruminating and focused almost 24/7 on them. Because that is a very painful, codependent repetition, externalizing out cycle to avoid what you really need to know more about yourself and a healing process and what you can discover in that healing process and journey that will bring you your own closure that in working with someone, and that will help you to heal from the relationship, break the unhealthy bond, do the family of origin work, and heal from what it was from your childhood that catapulted you, no matter what the attraction and everything was in the here and now of that time with your BPDX or on-off person. It's wounded people who end up with people with cluster B personality disorders. It's not the healthier amongst us. You are repeating something from your childhood unconsciously that you need to get into a healing recovery journey to understand. And it's a really painful place to be every time there's a breakup and a recycling, or if it's a breakup and you haven't recycled yet, or maybe you're not going to choose that. But wondering what they're thinking about, wondering how it is for them. People with BPD have the core wound of rupture in relating, trying to relate to parents, because that's an unhealthy bond that happens usually with a parent. They're well defended, and these are patterns that they might not be consciously aware of, these relational ruptures, and they're ghosting and discarding and the recycling and everything, but they have a lot of defense mechanisms for it, and they go through it over and over, whether they accrue awareness from that. But even awareness with people untreated with BPD is not going to create change. So when they come back, if they're hoovering you, or you hoover them, or whatever's going on for different people, when they say what they say, that you're just like, oh, so relieved to hear it. You're not really hearing what you need to hear. You're just hearing temporary promises, transient awareness. Oh, I'll go to therapy. I get it now. Or 2 weeks or 2 months later, oh, I've changed. That's not true, because you haven't changed. You're thinking about them 24/7. You're still hurt. You're still in a world of hurt. Try to think more about how you're feeling. Take an action step today. I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you. Let's talk about it. Let's start unpacking it, no matter what's going to happen next or not. And so we can help you to try to stop somewhat 24/7 thinking about if they're thinking about you and what's going on. Because that's only strengthening your codependency. It's taking you in the opposite direction from the direction that might be the most difficult, but that you really need to take now for yourself, because you matter and you deserve to see yourself, know yourself, find yourself again, and work toward healing from the relationship breakup and recycles and from codependency, so that you can become an independent person and relate in much more healthy ways going forward after a time of healing and recovery, and that processing and understanding more in a much more deep way, so that you will never end up in a relationship like this again. But make no mistake about it, if you don't go into a healing and recovery process, unless you do that healing and recovery work, you're going to be more likely to be meeting more cluster Bs, going through a lot more pain, and losing yourself more and more. The BPD relationship breakup is for so many people just the pause point, which can be for a long period of time or not, before you start the recycling, with no idealization phase. And as I'm saying in a lot of videos recently, and I have before, because you love them, but you don't know who they are, and there's no mutuality, reciprocity, they don't love you. They might think they do, but there's nothing healthy going on there. You're in love with their potential, and you keep thinking with every iteration something's going to change, and they're going to start meeting that potential or finding out who they are. Well, no. It takes years for them to do that if they're in the right modalities of treatment to do that and sticking with it. And in the meantime, what about you? You need to change and heal.
You've been listening to the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup Podcast. Our passion is to bring expert information for people that are hurt by someone with BPD. We truly hope you've gotten something from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. For more or get sessions with AJ, go to ajmahari.ca. See you next time.